Welcome back to Apply Now, your go-to podcast for creator economy, career advice, and hiring insights. Today's guest is Charles Haynes, founder and managing director of Ziggurat XYZ. Charles, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited we get to catch up. We met, at VidCon London, however many years ago, and it's always great to see you and reconnect. So I'm glad we have a chance to chat.
Yeah, thank you. I think it must have been 2018, 2019.
Probably, yeah, many years ago. So,
And you've been through a lot of iterations since then.
yes, indeed. Yeah, the creator economy never stops, and neither do I, right? Life moves quickly, so trying to keep up with everything. But excited to chat with you today, and I thought maybe we'd start off, just for folks who aren't familiar, maybe giving us a bit of background on yourself and how you found your way into the creator economy.
Well, I recently said about my stock answer is faking it till you make it. And it's interesting to hear that a lot of people's entry into the creator economy was from adjacent fields or saying this is an interesting nascent economy that I want to be a part of, and so I think fake it till you make it seems to be a common element between us.
Yeah.
But I mean, in large part, I've worked in commercial roles in the creative industries for a long time, film, publishing. I used to run a festival, and I didn't want to commute anymore. The big driver, when people talk about a lifestyle business, my version of a lifestyle business is a 19-minute commute. And so I started contacting YouTube creators in the evenings and weekends saying, can I help? And we're talking tiny creators. I think my first invoice was for like the equivalent of $20. And now, 8 years later, Ziggurat is 8 years old this week.
Congrats.
And I don't even need to I don't need to worry about the amounts that I'm sending for invoices.
That's amazing.
Someone else does it.
Yeah. And what's unique is you focused on very specific niches or types of creators, right? Whereas most people chase the creators in the big content verticals with, millions of subscribers. You found a different type of creator with big online audiences. So tell us what kind of differentiates you.
Yeah. We refer to it as factual entertainment. And sometimes people refer to it as the niches. And it's interesting that the collection of all the niches, I think I once saw a chart of what all these subjects on YouTube make up, and it's like 83% of content on YouTube is in a niche. And so I often say, actually, the large agencies or the mainstream agencies, they can have gaming and entertainment. They can have the small bit. I'll have the 83%. That's fine.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's something which you've been in the industry so long as well that it felt like the beginning was filled with people who are, for want of a better phrase, working with cool kids making cool content.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot about what was visible and what was high profile.
Yeah.
And I think that was also tied to people's demographics at the time. A lot of us were, in our 20s or early 30s when we started, and we were watching that content that was popular. But I also moved house and had a garden for the first time and started searching on YouTube for gardening content. And that was the catalyst for me of, well, actually, wait a minute. We're not just gamers or people who like entertainment content.
Sure.
We are multifaceted. I can be a gamer and like gardening and watch wood turning videos and never want to buy a lathe.
Right. Totally. Yeah. People's interests are broader and deeper than that. And also the platform has grown so much that for a while, these audiences were underserved, right? How do you find good gardening DIY content 10 years ago, next to impossible today? Abundant, amazing choices, right? And that's cool to see those communities being served on YouTube and TikTok and other platforms now.
I think it's also interesting that the business models are different. When we talk about all those other niches, it's interesting how each of those genres can have quite different business models between the creators. So a good example for me is that tech channels that make, say, PCs or are quite consumer-based electronics, a lot of their income is from affiliate deals.
Sure.
And very little to do with brand sponsorship. Why would a brand pay for someone to review something which they need anyway to make their video.
Yep.
It's a challenging economy, which makes it actually quite difficult for someone like a talent manager to work with them. Really, that's about optimization of content, SEO. That's a marketing activity from my perspective. But a DIYer who's renovating their house might actually just want several deals with tool manufacturers or hardware companies, or
which is naturally integrated into the content, right? Like, oh, I'm using Makita or DeWalt, or like the same tools show up in every video, and it's natural. You don't have to hit someone over the head with a product placement. It's something you would do anyway.
And the placements work very, very well. Like when we talk about when integrations don't work, when it's quite a hard sell, and I understand actually one of the things that people are saying is when an entertainment channel has to do an ad integration, they have to try really hard to make it good.
Yep.
And many of my clients, the hard part was making the content format work and learning the expertise and having that kind of background knowledge. The easy part is including the brand or the integration.
Yeah. So you mentioned, right, you set out to kind of chart your own path, and we're all faking it till we make it, which is very true, resonates a lot. What was the hardest part for you of being a first-time founder, trying to figure it out as you go along?
That's a really good question. I think not to immediately kind of move away from the creator economy, but being an employer. I think so much of the entrepreneurial lifestyle and the talk around what business owners are meant to do is about not to keep on talking about the straw man of hustle culture, but even when we talk about a lifestyle business, often that's in the guise of a business that makes lots of money and the person is having a millionaire's lifestyle. Whereas I think I'd had other jobs before. I know what it's like to have a bad boss, or to feel like you have to wait a year for a salary review when you know that you're killing it. And I found the hardest part as being an employer, feeling like an ethical employer, hiring people in the right way, supporting them through their careers in the right way. Thankfully, though, I also find that the most enjoyable part of the job. I mean, who also doesn't worry about cash flow and paying the bills at some point? That's of course happened in the past.
Yeah.
But the challenges are really about the people.
And so what do you look for when you've been expanding your team? What are the qualities, characteristics? How do you find these people? What's important?
There's a talent management, I think, it's just a small corner of the creator economy. Like if we think about where jobs are being advertised at the moment, it kind of shows three main buckets. We've got tech startups, and that gives a really large percentage of San Francisco jobs. Yep. We have a lot of remote jobs in the creator economy, and I get the impression that a large number of those are creator-based, so they're with a creator, editor, whatever. And then the rest of it is kind of professional services. And those professional services, those businesses are growing at such an extent that finding anyone with skills or expertise to come in as not an entry-level position is incredibly hard. So we have learned not to fight or try and compete with that based on money. I mean, that's the easiest way is you just offer really high salaries for those positions. We look for behaviors and attitudes, and we have people trained up from internally. It's also the inspirational part from my perspective that then you see people grow and learn, and two of our talent managers were assistants 2 or 3 years ago, and they do amazing work, and they really commit to the roster and how we do things because they came up from internally.
Yeah, amazing. So what are the hallmarks of a good talent manager, at least at Ziggurat, right? What are the characteristics, the behaviors and attitudes that you look for?
I think, well, I suppose if I think about what makes a good talent manager in general, what is their job? And it's not yelling down the phone. I always say to people starting the industry, or what I do, I think about, classic millennial reference point, but Friends, Joey's manager or Joey's agent would be like, "Hello, she wants more money." Like the stereotypical New York agent.
Yeah.
And that is so far from what I think of a talent manager. For creators, creators have so much choice. They have so much opportunity, and no one needs to get them permission to work. And so the idea of your role being to sell them mismatches their opportunity. And so on that basis, a good talent manager is someone who is thoughtful and holistic to the person they're working with. They have when we talk about like creator first or creator centric, to me, that's about them thinking of the individual and trying to provide a package of care around them. And in large part, that is helping them get more views and helping them get more money from those views. But that could be help with thumbnails. That could be looking at their video drafts. That could be helping them with keywords or SEO. It could be saying, "Hey, have you just thought about making less videos and being less stressed?"
Yeah.
And a manager in our industry should always be thinking about that long-term perspective, so that when their client does say, "I'm burnt out," there's space and room for that to happen and to work through it, rather than being like, "But you've got like 5 deals. Like there's these. I work on commission. Like I really, I need you to. Like take a day off."
Yeah, but then you can get back to those brand deals right by the end of the week. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And also, I've sent you a bunch of contracts you need to review.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how. So our talent managers don't work on commission. It's something that I didn't realize was an anomaly or a choice early on. But the biggest challenge with any talent management company is you are trying to give someone independent advice, but you have an ultimate conflict of interest in that you make money when they make money. And so knowing that is the commonly understood practice, like I can't fight the way that the industry works, but I can definitely try and prevent it affecting as much as possible. So if my staff aren't working on commission, at least they can say, "Oh, well, Charles is fine. He can get paid whenever. But my advice is don't take this deal."
Yeah. That's a good approach. I think a lot about the distinction between an agent and a manager, and people tend to use the terms interchangeably. But in my mind, an agent is transactional and focused on the short term, and that's not, it's not a slight or a criticism. Agents are a very important role. You want people to be chasing opportunities, bringing business in the door, and they should be rewarded for surfacing those opportunities. Whereas a manager's role is, like you said, thinking about the long-term strategy for the creator and their overall business. It's not just, okay, how do we do more branded integrations? It's thinking holistically about what enables you to set up for success over the long haul. And that's not getting burnt out. It's thinking about ways to grow your empire, saying yes to the right things, saying no more often to the wrong things. And so, I don't know that we do a good enough job as an industry of emphasizing that distinction, but I do think it's important.
Do you think there's a tipping point that will help us to create that distinction? Is it just maturity?
Potentially, right? Like I remember, 10 years ago in the early Wild West days of the creator economy, where you'd have talent that seemed like they were repped by everyone in town, right? Like every agency, talent manager, MCM was shopping the same, list of 20 creators. And you're like, wait, who actually manages these people? Who's the agent who's like bringing the deal to them? And a bunch of middlemen and folks were trying to get a cut of the transactions. I think digital is also different in that, traditional entertainment, there was limited inventory. There's only so much TV shows and movies. And so you kind of operate under this scarcity principle. Whereas in digital, the model's inverted, right? We have abundance. And so the way you serve an abundant marketplace of unlimited shelf space is very different than that scarcity approach to TVs and movies. And so Yes, I think part of it is industry maturity, and then I think the other part of it is just finding those who are really of service to the creators, right? Like great agents who really do bring in a lot of opportunities and are a great, resource both to their brand partners and agency sponsors as much as they are to a talent manager that they may interface with or the creator themselves. But also, these talent managers who have a deep understanding of our ecosystem and are thoughtful and intentional about guiding a creator's career and saying, well, it's bigger than direct platform ad monetization. It's bigger than brand deals. It's, if you're a gardening creator, how do we help you launch a product? Or how do we help you connect with your audience and have a Patreon or something like all these additional forms of audience engagement and monetization. I think that's where we need to get to.
It's interesting though, when you're talking about like a behaving differently in an abundant market, does that actually mean that the role of agent is a very challenging one to fulfill
It can
differently?
be. Mm-hmm.
Because from my perspective, selling ad spots is the bread and butter. Like we do that to make sure that our clients are commercially sound, and there's no distinction. Like the idea of them having an agent that does that and us doing something different.
Sure.
But I suppose that partly is that I feel like the gatekeeping that happens in traditional representation, that an agent can hustle and have connections and leverage stuff. Once you've been working in this industry long enough, if you don't know all the brands, if you don't know who all the agencies are, then you're doing it wrong.
Yep, that's true.
So the idea of saying, that agent is great at this.
Yeah.
I feel like, they should be. Like that's not the hard part. Maybe I just feel like we will never see a diversification. I would just like to see more clarity over when, from my perspective, we have competition who are agents. And I see that as a misunderstanding, because if we talk to their clients and say, one of the conversations that's very common is, we talk about videos and how you do stuff, and one of the things they'll say is, if I send you a thumbnail, will you give me feedback? And I'm like, yes, that's, of course,
sure,
video drafts of that. Because when I send it to my current representation, they're like, that's not my job, that's your job. I think that's like, well, that's because that they don't think it's their job.
Yeah,
that they are an agent.
Sure,
they draw a line, and you should understand that we are two different things.
Yeah, we are a business partner. We are here to help you with creative strategy, monetization, future business growth, all of the dimensions of your business. A good talent manager will help you think through that.
I hope so. I think it's interesting that I would hate to say that there has to be a clear distinction, because I don't know how a manager would start in our industry without being engaged with brand deals.
Yeah.
The investment necessary to work with the creator as just a manager, excluding that, you would be waiting years.
Yeah, sure.
I think it would just end up with a lot of people who, again, only work at the very top of the industry, who maybe that's
or the other trend that we observe in our space is there are a lot of managers where it's a side hustle, right? And they have another day job, or it's someone's childhood best friend, brother, mom, dad, sister, right? It's a lot of not necessarily full-time professional managers, which also blurs the line a little bit sometime in our space.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that also feels like a hangover from every other kind of representation, isn't it? The dadages and
true, you have it in the sports world, right, or in certain celebrities. But I think when many people get to a certain stage in their career, then they seek out professional representation. And I don't know, do you observe that in our space? Like people hit a certain threshold and then their needs change, or the way in which a different type of representative can serve them, they evolve to kind of needing a different type of help.
Yeah, then I mean, if we're talking about what a manager does and what an agent does, our threshold, they do need to be of a certain size where there's something for us to do. And our our rough ballpark is if you're not getting 50 to 100,000 views a video, roughly speaking,
Yeah.
it's going to be challenging for there to be enough for us to do.
Sure. Because you need scale to attract, the right advertising partners. Yeah.
Yeah, it also shows experience, and
Mhm.
obviously there's certain niches that it differs slightly.
Sure.
If you're a finance creator getting 50,000 views a video, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
But I think the other element of this is that creators can hire people,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's the other part of the maturation of our industry is that I used to say to people like that you don't necessarily need a manager. List your tasks, list your things that you want to happen, and you can cut it many different ways.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you might not need a manager. You might have an entertainment lawyer. There are
Mm.
some entertainment lawyers who will do brand deal negotiate.
Yeah, of
They'll look at
course.
brand deal contracts.
Sure.
And they will give advice about projects that and in things that they're interested in doing.
Uh-huh.
Similarly, you could get a PA and just deal with your inbound inquiries and
Mm-hmm.
never get a manager or an agent
Yeah.
and probably be fine in a lot of ways.
So outside of the manager role or an assistant, an entertainment lawyer, what are some of the other roles that you see creators hiring for on their teams?
It's interesting because we hire for our clients. We do recruitment for some of our clients,
Yeah.
and that often starts off with the question of, do you actually need this person? Like, talk to us about the job description and the role they're doing. And sometimes they just want to build a team. There's a feeling of like, I want to scale and I want to be a
Yeah.
big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And being an employer, as I said, is a big deal. It's a big responsibility. And
Sure.
my instinct so far is that most creators should not be employers.
Mm-hmm.
They work on their own and they rely on their own opinion, and
Yeah.
they're solo entrepreneurs for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with HR is one of the things that is very, very low on their priority list.
Sure.
So maybe that's the response to the question shouldn't be maybe they shouldn't be hiring, but
yeah, or pursuing alternatives, right? Working with
Yeah.
freelancers, working with contractors on an ad hoc basis. Yep.
But we've moved away from 3 or 4 years ago where the main one was I want a video editor. Then the next trend was I want a video editor and I want a thumbnail designer or a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And now I think creators are understanding and becoming more sophisticated as to operational roles. I think it's because we're talking about the upskilling, the gaining experience of an industry, and each creator needs to mature as a business owner and founder, and that looks kind of similar for everyone. First of all, they're like, oh, I make videos, and so I need people to help me make videos, and so it's video editors and graphic designers and thumbnail artists.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And it's interesting how often a creator talks about improving the video quality, their video production. So often when they say those words, what they mean is cameras and gear. And I think that is something, if you worked in TV and film, like improving production quality, that's about what's on screen.
Sure.
Not what you're shooting with.
Yep.
Or it's, the writer, the pre-production. And I think we're seeing the industry being like, oh, actually, I improve what's on screen by thinking about it for 3 months beforehand. And so we have writers and researchers. I think half the roles that we've hired for in the last year have been pre-production, which I think is unusual ratio for the industry. I think there's still a lot
maybe makes sense for more your factual entertainment content. Yep.
Yeah. Also, the maturity of our clients, they've already had editors for a while.
Sure.
And I don't think I'm when we hear about roster remarking about like COOs and CCOs and stuff.
Yep.
I don't see much of that. I think we're talking about the 1%.
Sure.
Who have excessive.
They're building more of a true media company and need that type of operating help.
But it's interesting that you were talking about chopping up tasks and responsibilities. Every
Mhm.
CEO has to shed responsibilities and tasks, and their opportunity is to get people who are better than themselves.
Yeah.
And uh, again, there is not enough people with skills and an understanding of the industry. I'm really interested to see, as there is enough people that have been through one job with a YouTube creator, like they've been with them for 3 or 4 years or something, and that group starts to move to other YouTube creators, will we see a real improvement in the industry? Like those skilled people moving around, and suddenly everyone else is leveraging this massive amount of experience that's come out of the industry, or you know, we'll end up with a lot more freelancers on Fiverr for a long time.
Yeah, sure. How about AI? With the impact of generative AI tools for research or scripting or even creative, editing, design, is that impacting the way that either creators hire for their teams or the way that their teams work and leveraging these tools to save time?
I suppose I don't think I've spoken to enough creators to be like, I know I've got the uh, temperature check across the industry,
Sure.
but my experience is that creators are at first and foremost creatives, and
Hmm.
that is a group that are slightly uh, ambivalent towards AI. They both think it is a tool that they could use, but they also are suspicious of
Yeah.
the removal of creativity, true
Uh-huh.
creativity from what they do. But um, those creators that I know that have embraced it, I'm fascinated by their use of it. One
Mm.
of our clients, a channel called 42, they, I think, probably over a year ago now, started using AI to replace all of their thumbnails. And
Mm.
the guy that runs the channel, Aaron, he did a really interesting thing of he didn't just start doing it for new thumbnails. He went back and did a really large amount of his back catalogue uh, to make things consistent, create a consistent overview. And when you have a large back catalogue, I think it's one of those things where what a great idea of trying to homogenize what's happened over the last 5 years by using AI to very cheaply go through that and make that a consistent marketing thing. Every creator kind of learns and iterates, and every year you can see their thumbnails change or the video
Hmm.
content type change.
Yeah.
He now uses it as an idea generation system for his thumbnails. Um, Gets to one which the team like. They might A/B
Yep.
test it using YouTube's A/B testing tool,
Yep.
and then a graphic designer potentially will use assets that are AI generated or manipulate it to get to the final thing.
Draw inspiration. So it becomes kind of a pre-production tool. Yeah.
Yeah, uh,
Interesting.
which is what I've heard in other instances where it's like, oh, I work quickly. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
YouTube creator. I need this video up soon.
Yep.
I don't have the time to, like, the operations overhead of going to people and freelancers and getting their contracts and sorted and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
I can use AI to iterate on this scene quickly.
Yeah. Interesting. So, for those who are eager to kind of keep up with the emerging trends or changes in our space, what are some of the resources that you take advantage of, or what advice would you have for people early in their career who are thinking about kind of getting into either talent management or the creator economy writ large?
The wonderful thing about getting into talent management is there is no one answer. There's no one best agency that's perfect for every creator. There is flavors. So if you do want Joey's agent shouting down the phone, and
Hmm.
some creators want that. They want
It's
an
out there. Yep.
Yeah, they want an aggressive version because they think that's what's going to get them the best deal. They can find it, and I don't think there are enough people providing a quality service in all the different flavors for us
Mm.
to ever. I do not feel like we're saturated at the
Yeah.
moment. Um, I still feel freely like I can contact a creator that I want to work with, and if we're a good fit and have a good conversation,
Hmm.
it will come out right. And so there's no feeling from my perspective that you can't still start in this industry from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, I I contacted people getting 10,000 views a video and just said I'd like to help. and I don't see how that has changed. I think in some industries you do see how the kind of ladder gets pulled up behind people. More widely, I don't think the advice has changed much from 5 years ago of, if you want to work with a YouTube creator and you think you have a skill set to provide, then contact them.
Yeah.
My impression is still that YouTube creators are just like a production company, that the day you contact them, they might need you. And they don't have the time very often to search and do like a hiring process and go through portfolios and stuff. It's
Yeah.
like when, the runner has turned up. No, sorry, the second AD has turned up sick and the runner gets the opportunity.
Sure.
And so if you want to work with creators, I still think there's loads of opportunity there as well.
Yeah. And there's no substitute for experience, right? That it's not like there's a formal training, manual for most of the roles in our space. So there's the real way to do it is learn by having that practical experience, volunteering, apprenticing, starting your own thing on the side, asking creators if you can help. That's the best way to kind of get up to speed quickly.
I'll be interested to hear, James, if you've seen much development in the universities in the US in terms of picking up on the creator economy.
Certainly, yes, right? Like a number of institutions are now recognizing how big digital media, creator economy plays in the future of media and entertainment. And so they're starting to embrace it. I'm not, fully up to speed on some of the programs or degrees offered, but certainly there's been a greater appreciation for it and a recognition that, like I went to USC Film School many, many years ago, and the focus was, we churn out people who make big blockbuster movies and TV shows, right? And even then it was like, we make movies, and like sometimes we make TV shows. There was no mention of web series, digital media, right? Yeah. And then I'm sure that's changed to, we make the best TV and, Hollywood movies, but there's some digital media stuff and you should learn about that, right? Like it always lags a bit behind, but I think there's certainly more, there's more education opportunities, formal and informal, right? I mean, the best way to probably learn how to make YouTube videos is to watch YouTube, right? Like there's no substitute for kind of the practical experience.
I've been pleasantly surprised by, so in the UK, there's a university called Nottingham Trent University that has an undergraduate degree in content creation, and it offers a full program in either becoming a content creator or working in the content creation business. Yeah. But esports, there are a number of institutions with esports management, esports production degrees, and there's in this town I'm in right now, Northampton, the college has an esports production center that apprentices can go through, which is great to hear, because both of us know that those skills are in high demand.
Sure,
that there are paid jobs. You don't need to wait for someone to, well. When I first worked in publishing, you either need someone to die or retire.
Yeah.
And this is an industry where that's not necessary. And I don't know whether young people necessarily understand that is an opportunity.
Sure. Again, I think it comes back to scarcity versus abundance, right? In the old world, there were only a certain number of jobs, and climbing the ladder meant you had to wait for a spot to open up. And in our ecosystem, there's a lot more lateral moves, diagonal moves. Yes, you can move up the ladder in a traditional sense, but there are a lot more different career paths open to you than before.
I think that's one of the nice things of, like, I love to see I hate to see when our industry repeats mistakes from, I say, traditional talent representation or production. Yeah. But I love to see where we manage to just shed an old habit. And I feel like talent management agencies don't have that whole agent and assistant. The agent is God, the assistant is some kind of like coffee getting photocopying monkey. Like we rely on the assistants at Ziggurat. They are not entry level positions. We don't have a photocopier, but even if we did, like, that wouldn't be their job.
Sure.
And they're not siloed. So each of our assistants work with, the majority of the managers across a number of clients, and it's an apprenticeship, not you need to earn your dues, do this for 2 or 3 years, and maybe you can be in a meeting with someone.
Oh, that's good. That's a good approach. Charles, this has been really fun and illuminating into what it's like, building a business, being a talent manager, thinking about the creator economy at large, outside of, building your representation business and being intimately involved in the space. What do you do for fun? What do you do outside of work?
Well, I've found it particularly rewarding to try and not monetize my hobbies. So currently, I'm renovating my house, and someone told me a long time ago, if you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur, try and find hobbies that you can't make money from, because they'll
Yeah.
stay hobbies, and you'll maintain joy in certain areas of your life.
That's good advice, because us entrepreneurs tend to want to optimize every aspect of our existence. And if we think, oh, hey, maybe I can make a quick buck on this thing that you're supposedly doing for fun, sometimes it takes the joy out of it.
I wish creators would take the same advice. I feel like every creator is able to make content from anything they do, and therefore it becomes monetizable. But
Yeah. And they don't have conventional working hours, right? So it's like anytime you're not creating content, you're not working, it feels like, oh, this is potentially a waste, right? It's easy to get caught up in this thought process of, well, I'm squandering this opportunity and not monetizing or maximizing this moment. And it's hard to kind of break out of that. I mean, I've been guilty of it too, even not as a creative, but just as an entrepreneur, where it's like, okay, you have control over your time and activities. You have to be very careful not to get lost in that.
yeah, I suppose they wonder why they burn out.
Yeah. Well, so when I imagine that's something you've dealt with, right? When your talent are facing challenges of, I'm exhausted, I'm not creatively inspired anymore. How do they recharge? What advice do you give them to help kind of maintain that balance?
I mean, two of my clients are currently on hiatus, so it is heavily evident that it is not something that's easily avoided. I think it's not something which I can say you can actively keep hold of. It's not like I was like, oh, I should have seen the warning signs 3 months ago and told you to take time off. It is more about, if it is going to happen, the support network around you.
Sure.
So if someone doesn't have a therapist, if someone doesn't have a supportive team around them, if someone doesn't have a manager who is thinking about their long-term health, lifestyle, then the likelihood is much more increased that they're going to have a crash, not just a
Sure.
burn.
Yeah.
And, clients will regularly join us saying, I've never had someone say, have you thought about not publishing? That we have someone that joined us recently who's said that their management, they would just have like this constant flow of opportunities that they was like, can't you do another video this month? Can't you do another
Right?
video this
Yeah.
month?
Yeah.
And
Putting more on the pile, not ever thinking about taking things away. Yeah.
which I feel like, as a business model, that sounds like you're building something on a precipice.
It's exciting, right? The company's growing, you're making more money. But when you think about, yes, but the creative engine that drives this is a human being, and you're just putting more and more on top of that human being, that's where it gets out of hand. Yeah.
So I don't think there's like if you do these 5 things, you'll be fine. You'll never burn out.
Sure.
But as you say, with all humans, we do have to listen to ourselves. And I suppose, as a manager, I'm always looking for mythologies that build up between both entrepreneurs and creators as to what they should be achieving. Our industry is full of confirmation bias and false positives. Like, I was thinking the other day about how Teespring built a massive business off of FOMO. That every creator saw other creators launching merch.
Sure. And said, oh, I need to do that too.
And through the act of launching it, the impression was, well, that must be successful.
Yeah. I've made it. I have merch now. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think I'd be very surprised if Teespring didn't make an awful lot of money, similar to the MCN model of a large volume but low value.
Yeah. Low margin.
Yeah. And Teespring didn't need 1,000 creators to sell 10,000 units. if their model was there's a tech solution,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they could have 10,000 creators each selling 1,000 units, and they could make
Exactly.
an awful lot of money.
Yep.
Those kind of positive confirmations or positive, false flags exist
Mm-hmm.
far too prevalently in our industry. And the more that the 0.1% achieve unique things,
Mm-hmm.
I think the more as managers we have to work to be like, okay, you're not going to get an Amazon deal
Yeah.
for a TV show anytime soon. Like
Right. Yep.
we referred to Mr. Beast getting this deal, and
Mm-hmm.
he
Which
is
is one of one. Yeah.
yeah. We're not even talking about a percentage point that I can probably calculate to.
Sure.
And so, what is within your remit? What is the thing that's achievable for you this year, next year,
Yeah.
and makes sense? And using contemporaries or peers to help to triangulate if it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. One of the things that I like about my client base and the factual entertainment world is that they can leverage a lot of influence, clout,
Uh-huh.
with very little, a modest audience.
Yeah.
Like a chef of modest audience can still
Mm-hmm.
have a book because they can put a
Yeah.
lot of value into that book. They
Sure.
don't need to have lived an amazing life or have a high profile to get a
Yep.
memoir. And so I suppose I like not working in pure entertainment because my client base can achieve a lot with modest means,
Yeah.
without burning themselves out.
Terrific. Very good. Well, Charles, again, thank you. This has been awesome. Where can people find out more about you and more about Ziggurat XYZ?
I mean, one of the reasons I named the company Ziggurat XYZ is it's really easy to find on Google, on the web. Just look up any of our clients on Instagram. Thanks very much for having me, James.
Thank
It's
you
been
for
a
coming on
pleasure
the
talking about
show.
it.
Yeah, great to hear more about your journey and thinking about the creator economy as a whole and kind of practical advice for talent managers and people thinking about just getting going in their career. It's been really helpful. So thanks again.
You're welcome. And I look forward to hearing about your next business, the serial entrepreneur, James Creech.
Yep, absolutely. Definitely. We'll catch up more on that one of these days.
Thanks.
Thanks, Charles.